This video demonstrates setting the sleeve into the armhole of the tiny cardigan. It's important to work the sleeve in flat before you've sewn the side seam of the cardigan or the underarm seam of the sleeve. Begin by marking the center line of the sleeve cap. If you didn't put a marker in before you bound off on the machine, you can fold the flat bound off edge of the sleeve cap in half, find the center, and hang a marker. With the knit side of the sleeve facing you, begin hanging one edge of the sleeve cap onto the pins of the linker. In this example sleeve, I bound off 4 stitches, so I should hang those 4 stitches point to point or stitch to point on the linker. Next, begin hanging the shaped edge of the sleeve cap, ensuring that you're putting the sleeve onto the pins exactly 1 stitch in from the edge of the work. Only the selvage column of stitches should be above the pins in the linker. When linking, what you see is what you get. So take time to be as exact and precise as you can, ensuring that, again, just that edge or selvage edge column of stitches is the only thing above the pins. Pulling down gently on the work is a good way to check to ensure that you've hung the correct piece of the cap. As you continue hanging the selvage edge onto the pins, things might get a little bit strange looking as you transition from the shaped edge to that flat bound off portion of the sleeve cap. Do your best to achieve a pretty smooth transition here. Hang as much of the sleeve cap as you can without putting too much stress on the sleeve itself. You'll have to link this in one total pass, but between 2 sections. So once I've hung the sleeve as far as I can, I'll match the armhole to what's already on the pins. Do this by aligning the marker stitch hung on the side neck of the front of the cardigan, and then hang the armhole edge at side seam where you started linking initially. After these 2 points are hung, begin working the armhole onto the pins of the linker. You may have to ease slightly, or it may seem as though you're easing slightly the armhole to meet the sleeve cap. Again, work very carefully and methodically, making sure that you're picking up just that selvage column of stitches to be hung above the pins. Turn the point dial towards the needle and begin linking, keeping some manual tension on the yarn tail for the first couple of stitches, just to help it start cleanly. Continue linking until you're an inch or so away from where you've stopped hanging both the cap and the armhole. Peel the portion you've linked from the pins. This will alleviate the tension that was built on the sleeve cap so that you can hang the remainder of the sleeve cap and the armhole, which will allow you to complete the seam. Again, work from both ends of the linked segment. This will ensure that you don't have too much armhole or too much sleeve cap left over should you have stretched one of those edges too far. It's not a bad idea to remove the yarn markers so they don't get caught up in the linking mechanism. However, if you do remove these and you decide that you need to relink this seam, that critical piece of the assembly puzzle will have been lost. I made a bit of a mess here and caught a yarn end somehow in between the pins when I was linking. Be mindful of where those yarn ends or yarn tails are so that you don't have to cut one out like I am here. Once the rest of the sleeve is hung, continue linking. Link for several pins beyond the edge of the work or beyond the end of the seam. With the needle in its outmost position, draw some slack from the tension unit and break the yarn between the work and the eye of the needle. This will prevent you from having to thread the needle again later, but also separate the working yarn from the cone or ball or whatever you're linking from. Using a transfer tool or a double eye needle, knock the loop off of the looper and remove your work from the pins. At this point, carefully inspect your seam. Make sure that there aren't any errors or that you've incorrectly hung an edge. You can see a couple errors in my sleeve here, and if this were a real garment, I would probably unravel this linking and rehang it to try to accomplish a little bit of a cleaner join. However, if you're happy with it, unravel that yarn tail that you made at the end of the work and pull the last loop through itself to lock off the chain stitch.